Family-owned Soccer Innovation is your go-to source for top-quality equipment. Whether you're a player, a supportive family member, or a dedicated coach, they have everything you need to elevate your game. For players, their innovative equipment are designed to boost your skills and performance on the pitch. From their agility cones to their portable goals, they have you covered. And family members, they offer durable equipment that's built to last because we know your support is critical to your player. Coaches, trust me, they can provide the equipment you need to run effective training sessions and shape the next generation of soccer players. Visit Soccer Innovations at soccerinnovations.com to start elevating your game with them. And if you use the code PITCH, PITCH, you can receive up to 10% off your next order. Hey soccer friends, I just want to give a shout out to our partner, Team Player. They are changing the game on how you find the perfect soccer team for your player. Parents, this means no more endless social media scrolling to find information on teams. With Team Player, everything you need to know is just a few clicks away. It's simple, straightforward, and lets you find the best coach and team for your player without any of the usual headaches. And coaches, we all know how tough it can be to get your team noticed, but when you subscribe to one of Team Player's team plans, you instantly get access to set up an online team profile that allows you to reach more potential players and showcase what your team is all about. It's super easy and lets players and parents see why your team could be the right fit for them. And if you sign up using the promo code PITCH, you can try any team plan free for 1 month. So whether you're managing a team or searching for one, come on over to www.teamplayer.us. That is TEAMPLAYR.US. And come give Team Player a look. I want to tell you about something I've used and that I truly believe in. Replayer. It's a sideline camera built for youth sports. Just set it up, hit record, and it captures the entire game automatically. No chasing the ball, no holding your phone, just hands-free, stress-free recording. The in-game tagging is one of my favorite features. One tap, and you can mark a big goal, ankle-breaking moves, or a clutch tackle. Then pull those clips for later for review, highlights, or social media. And the live streaming's next level. A buddy of mine actually watched his son's game while flying cross-country at 30,000 feet. That blew me away. If you're a parent or coach at the field every weekend, Replayer is a game changer. Head to replayer.com. That's REEPLAYER.com. And I think you'll be amazed. Hello and welcome back to Chat by the Pitch. This is Ian Babcock, your host. This week I have Kassandra, a young lady that grew up playing soccer here in North Texas that went off to Spain to play because she won a scholarship through her club. This is not an ordinary story. It's a remarkable journey. So let's start this chat and head to the pitch.
My name is Kassandra Ruelas. I've been a soccer player for North Texas all my life. I recently played for Villarreal Club de Fútbol overseas, but currently I'm out because of an ACL and meniscus tear.
So let's talk about your journey with soccer. So when was the first time you discovered soccer, and when was the moment you realized you loved the beautiful game?
So my journey with soccer was a little bit, I think, in my opinion, it's a little bit difficult to explain because soccer has always been a part of my life since I can remember. Literally, my first word was goal in a game. It has never been this like material moment of, wow, I really love this game. It's just always been present in my life. Whether it was going over to my aunt's house and setting up the couches to where there were goals and having just a little bit of a game right there in the living room. Or I've been playing competitively for all of my life. Going to practice has never truly or has rarely ever felt like an obligation. It's always just been this thing where if I'm not playing on the field, I'm not happy. And it's simply through those moments of missing the game that's when I can tell, wow, I love this game. I can't live without it.
So there's no defining moment. So how did you realize that soccer was the path that you wanted to go down? How did you know, or at what moment did you realize? There has to be an age where you're like, this is what I want to do.
There was. I think it was a little bit of a mentality shift when I was in middle school. When I was younger, I would play soccer in recess and all of that, but it was still a little, I'd never really thought about my future like that. And then growing up, when I was getting to like the 12, maybe even 11 age, that was whenever soccer started to get more competitively in club, and school was a little bit more important because I was going into middle school, it was a different schedule, all of that. And I would be sitting in school and I would think, I want to be on the field. And in practices, what I saw in myself shift was that it was no longer like a, hee ha ha, I want to go with my friends moment. It was like a, I'm here to train. I'm here to be serious. If it's not a good training, I would get frustrated, which was probably not the best mentality, but it was a little bit of a switch where all of a sudden, like, I wanted to take soccer a lot more serious in terms of professionally. And people would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And especially in middle school, they have you make 4-year plans and all of that stuff. And I would picture what my future would be like, and I could never picture anything other than playing on the field. So that was really my big switch.
Do you feel like here, growing up here in North Texas, there was a huge, what I'm looking for? Growing up here in North Texas, was there a big culture pressure you felt, or was it just part of your life? Everyone's home life is one way, but the culture you grow up around with the game is a completely different world. So was there a culture pressure for you to play soccer or be successful within soccer?
I think I've always felt a little bit of that pressure, mainly because of my family. You've had Gio on here and my other cousins, Christian and Esteban. Esteban went to play professionally in Mexico. Christian and Esteban have played indoor professionally with Sidekicks. And even not considering their own professions, they've always been about soccer for as long as I can remember. And they have always made it very clear to me that no matter what I do, they will always be proud of me, and they will always, but even then, I tend to put that pressure a little bit on myself that, like, they've put so much work into me and they've done so much for me that I want to make all of it worth it. In terms of the Texas culture, honestly, I've never felt a lot of that pressure. The biggest pressure I would feel would maybe be like the Texas atmosphere for girls soccer is extremely competitive, really competitive. Like, I have so many teammates that I have either played with before, played against for all of my life, and they're playing professionally in the NWSL. And so there's always been a little bit of that pressure where seeing them succeed and me maybe not being as successful as quickly has been a little bit, it can put you down for a second, but I have a very good support system. So I've always been able to talk to them about my timeline, and it's become easier to understand that at the end of the day, the goal is to get to the end point, to that one big place. And no matter how long or no matter where I have to go to get there, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's my journey and there's no need to compare.
Nice. I feel like that's the number one reason it's part of this, my train of thought. And it is most kids quit by the time they're 13. Girls have a 54% dropout rate for sports by the age of 13. The average by the time it's 13 is a 74% average of kids playing sports quit or something crazy like that. So at the age of 13, so it's figuring out how to alleviate that pressure. So if it's self-pressure and you overcame it or whatever it may be, but that pressure, was it overcome by the love of the game or the love by the support that you had? Or is it a combination of things that allowed you in those early years of the pressure feeling?
I think it was, it was definitely a combination. Like I mentioned, like, I had a support system. My mom, she was willing to drive me an hour and a half with traffic to Dallas to go to practices during the week, 2 to 3 times a week. And so she was always willing to tell me, like, Kassandra, the day you don't want to do this, I'm here for you. If you do want to do this, I'm going to do, I'm with you 100%. But it was also, simply the love of the game. It was very easy for me off of the field to compare where we were going. But by the time it came to being on the field, I It wasn't like I have to perform because I want to do this or I have to do that. I want to perform because I love the game and I know that I know what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, it was simply just my therapy. It was where I got to express myself. It was where I got to forget about what was going on the day before or that week, and simply going through it game by game and practice by practice. It really just led me to where I'm at now.
You talked about being your therapy. Do you find that, and allowing you to be creative? I find sports to be an art. A lot of people that are artists say the same thing. Their work is their therapy when they get to go be creative. Did you find that having that outlet allowed you to overcome challenges that were outside, that were off the pitch as well, because you had a place that was a safe place?
Oh, yes, for sure, for sure. There were times where when I was a little bit younger and I was a little bit not as emotionally mature, where I would let my emotions get in the way, emotions from things outside of the field get in the way of how I was doing, what I was thinking during the game. And that was a period of time where I was not feeling happy with soccer. And not in terms of I want to quit soccer, but in terms of I'm not performing. I know I'm not doing well because I'm getting in my head too much and I don't like it. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
You're good. About having the emotions, having you lose, bringing on soccer, you were not like.
And so it got to a point where I was frustrated. I didn't know what to do. And that's when I really hung on to my cousin, Christian. All three of my cousins, they've had careers in soccer, but he was always the one that I was a little bit closer to because I played on his team with the boys. And just talking with him really got me to see that whenever I'm on the field, it was never a matter of thinking. If someone asked me to explain what I was thinking or how I saw a play that I did, I'm not capable of explaining to them because it's simply natural. And so it was simply like letting go of my emotions, letting go of all the baggage that I was carrying from outside of the field. It helped me recover from that little era that I was going through. And now that's how I am able to use my game as a therapy. It's like going onto the field, I know what I'm doing. Like I don't have to think about what's going on because again, I've learned and I've been taught so well that I simply have to stop thinking and it all works out. And even after the games, like it's this like breath of relief where I've just played a great game. Even if I haven't had a great game, I've done what I love and it clears my mind a little bit more for what I'm going into outside of the field.
That's awesome. I think that is missing. I think a lot of people find that when they go to the gym, but I think it's the heavy endorphins that you are getting from working out and allows you to be that way. I think that's awesome. Now you talk about your cousins quite a bit, and I've had Gio on, and I have known your other two cousins for several years now. And I think the world of your cousins, the three brothers there. I call them, depending on who I'm talking to, sometimes I call them the three amigos because they all are so great, and they all have a similar personality trait, always finding the positive in things. And it's amazing how each one of them have such a love for the game. So how was it having your cousin coach you, and how was it being part of a family, hearing Gio's stories and listening to him talk? And when I had him on, the stories he did share were amazing. How was that, having them around and helping you and coaching and help motivating you to go through your process?
It was very different for each of them because, for example, Esteban, whenever I was really beginning to get coached by my cousins, they've always taught me how to hit the ball or how to do this or that. But whenever I was really starting to get coached, Gio and Christian, Esteban was still working on his own professional career. So with Esteban, it's always been a little bit more of like unofficial coaching, where it was more when I was a little bit younger, playing in, like I mentioned before, playing in the living room. So he taught me that with all three of them, having them coach me I would not have made it as far as I have, and I would not be here today if it weren't for them. The biggest thing that I think they taught me was learning how to have this switch in terms of professionality, because I would have to come from a family event or riding in the car with my cousin, who's a family member who I'm comfortable doing or saying whatever, to going on the field and being expected to perform because that's my coach, having to listen to him because that's not my cousin. It's not a suggestion. That's my coach. It taught me how to have that switch. And honestly, I never really thought about it before, but I think that helped me with other coaches outside of my cousins, because I would be able to joke with my coaches, or I would be able to freely ask questions and be curious around them without feeling uncomfortable. And then the second they asked me to perform, I was willing to flip that switch and take it serious.
I think that's an important trait. I feel a lot of kids are coached by parents, and a lot of kids get burnt out because it is their dad or their mom, and they're asking them to do something they really don't want to do. But if it was someone else asking them to do it, they would do it in a heartbeat. I give my kids a hard time about that all the time. I go, if your coach is asking you to go clean your room, do it in a minute. But because it's your mom or dad doing it, you don't want to do it. And we joke quite a bit about it. Or I give them a hard time about it. So that's a good lesson to learn from them. As you've gone through your soccer career, where have you played then in your younger years? Let's work through that process, because I know you shared some information with me, so I'm going to let you share it with everyone else then.
When I was younger, the first team I can really think of that I started with was Odyssey. I had Coach Paul. I was such a little kid, but I will forever remember that man. He was quite a personality. I started with Odyssey, and then, funny enough, my sister was playing for Liverpool. And simply because I wanted to follow my sister, and there was issues going on with Odyssey at the time, and because I wanted to follow my sister, I switched to Liverpool, and that's where I met Coach Tristan. We met Sam through my sister, as a matter of fact. But Sam didn't have an age group for me, so I went with Coach Tristan, who is actually still helping with the Villarreal girls UPSL. And I stayed with him for a few years, and being with him, we went from Liverpool to Solar to then FC Dallas. And I think that was the last thing. I followed him around for quite a few clubs. And then from there, the team wasn't looking too good. That was whenever the age pure happened. So I was one of 2 06s. We were on an 05 team. And so the situation wasn't looking too good for us 06s. And so from there, Coach Tristan, one of the best things, I think I'm so grateful for him. He was willing to sit down with me and have a conversation and be like, listen, Kassandra, I love you as a player. I've been with him for so many years. But he recommended for me to go find someone else. And so from there, I started guest playing with a Texans team. And from Texans, I had a coach, Jason. He unfortunately left halfway through the season. And I got my first female coach ever. And I was not very happy. I was not very happy for the rest of the season. So from there, I got seeked out by Coach Dan Mariscal. He was with FC Dallas at the time, and I don't even have the words to express my gratitude for him. I stayed with him for a good 4 or 5 years, starting off with FC Dallas, and then from there we switched to Sting. And then my last 2-3 years was with Sting up until I found out I was leaving to go to Spain. So then I just played my half a season with Villarreal North Texas boys. And then from there, I went off to Spain to play for Villarreal.
Do you find the grind of the youth sport, I'm going to probably say not so much when you were more U13 and older, to be very hard? Because especially on the women's side of the game here in Texas, we have a long history. If you look at, they're about to make a movie about the first World Cup or match or whatever it was, and it was a bunch of Sting girls that went over to I think it was China or Japan, wherever it was at, to go play. And it wasn't an American team that's a national team. And unfortunately, it was cut short, because I'd love to hear that story of that stuff that went on for those players, because it was such a hard time. And there is such a rich history for the women's game here out of DFW. Mm-hmm. Do you find that the level of play going from that point on, about 13 years old and older, to be more competitive? Because I'm assuming you probably traveled out of state some to play, or
for sure.
do you find the competition here at that age group to be very competitive compared to the other places, or do you think it's catching up to Texas, or are we just in a bubble and we think we're great here in Texas?
I can't speak for now. It's been a minute since I've played here in Texas and out of state. But at the time, whenever I was 13, 14, 15, I am so fortunate to have grown up here in Texas because it was a dramatic difference. Unless we were going to California, we all know the level there. We would travel to Oklahoma, Colorado, Florida, Tennessee, and it was just our biggest competition. The biggest people we would have to keep an eye out for are the same people we would have to play for in league here in Texas. So the competition and the grind, it'll get difficult. It would get difficult, but for me, it was always natural. I would come from one practice with my club team, and if the boys were still practicing, I'd be like, I want to jump in. Fridays were supposed to be my days off. No, I want to go from a high school soccer game to Villarreal skills and shooting. So in that sense, it was hard because it would test me physically and sometimes mentally. I don't always want to do sprints after practice. I don't always want to work on the physical part that has nothing to do with soccer. But it was always just so natural for me. Like, I understood to do that, to get where I want to go and to play soccer, I have to do all of it. And competition-wise, I've been growing up playing the same people, literally the same people since I was 13 years old. And so it was that we started, I don't know if they ever recognized me, but I definitely started doing like her. I know that I'm going to be up against her this match. Or this one, I'm maybe not personally marking her, but I know I can give some tips to my teammate, that is, because I know how she plays. And so I will say, like, I never felt that competition outside of Texas like I did in here, especially because it was so many familiar faces that were so good. So really, it was always natural for me because I did grow up around that literally since I started.
I think you touched on a few things. I can only relate because I talked to my son. My son has gone to camps with someone, or he has played on a team with someone, or someone came and tried out. So he has this great soccer memory. And as I call it, because it comes to everything else, kids tend not to remember things unless it's important to them. And so I was like, I played against this kid. I don't remember what team he played on, but this is, and so we are always talking about that. You can normally tell, of course, I played against this kid in camp. I know how to beat him. And sure enough, he goes out there and knows how to beat him because gets on that one-on-one situation. So that's kind of cool that it still hasn't changed in our 5 or 6 year gap between today and probably that age for you. How do you feel? How do I phrase this? You mentioned earlier on, you have a lot of friends playing in higher levels. Mm-hmm. Over your time, have you ever had those moments of feeling overlooked or being in someone's shadow that was in front of you, or talent wise, or as I tell my son, a coach always has a player that they favorite for whatever reason.
Yes.
Have you ever felt like you've been overlooked or sat in someone's shadow that maybe you shouldn't have, or it's a normal feeling? It's just
right now that I'm older, referencing the people that I talked about being in the NWSL, I got very lucky because right whenever they started getting their fame, I had found out I was going to Spain. Even though maybe they weren't aware of who Villarreal was, or no one else in the world knew how big of a deal it was for me. It was a huge deal for me personally, getting to play in Spain. Luckily, I didn't ever have to deal with that comparison as much or feeling underestimated in that moment. I definitely have before. When I was younger, like I mentioned, when I left from Texas to FC Dallas, I was sought out. I don't say that to brag about myself, but I knew that they wanted me and I knew that I could do something at this team. So when I was younger, I never really had that feeling. And then about 2 seasons before I graduated, I was playing on a Sting block. And we had this new coach come in. The coach that I had been playing with for 4 or 5 years left to go coach boys. And we had this new coach come in. And it was a sense of false hope. because he told me I was going to be captain. He told me he loved my work ethic and that he was excited to start the season with me and a few other players. And then season came around, and it was the sense of the coach would not communicate to me what he wanted out of a captain. He would ask other players to do certain things that I felt maybe were my responsibilities that I didn't realize he wanted, and he wouldn't communicate that to me. And on the field, it was definitely this sense of favoritism. It was the first time in my life that I had ever gotten 5 minutes of playing time in an entire game. And it was discouraging. It was really discouraging. I'm not going to lie. I mentioned ever since I was younger, I wanted to go to the end with soccer. And for this season, it was the first time in my life that I'd ever doubted, like I'd ever thought or even considered, I don't want to play. I'm not enjoying myself. And it's not because of my own performance, but out of something that's completely out of my control. And I also am a little bit of a control freak, so I did not deal with that very well when it first started. So definitely felt underestimated and in the shadows and overlooked. And I'm not going to lie to you, season was just about pushing through. There were so many times we were practicing in Plano and in Frisco that's an hour and 15 drive. There were times where I would have to do my homework in my car every night. And there were times where I wanted to say, can I just say I'm sick? Can I just say, and I wouldn't, I'm grateful. My mom would not allow me to, because she understood what it meant for me and my character if I let myself think like that. And she got me through that season. But that season was just about pushing through. I had to make sure I never let my work ethic or my attitude be an issue, because those are the things that I can control. And as long as that was at always 100%, I knew that I was doing what I could. At that point, everything else was up to the coach. So I pushed through practices, I pushed through games, sitting on the bench, knowing that I might not even play. And that was it. And I had Coach Tomas, I don't know if he's still coaching nowadays, but sought me out after that season, and it was a miracle for me. I think it brought everything that I know and loved about soccer back to my mentality. It was a difficult time, but I pushed through and I got through it. And anyone else who has had to or will have to deal with that it's going to be tough. But at the end of the day, if you really love and you really have a passion for it, you can't control what coaches or teammates think or say about you and their decisions regarding who plays or who doesn't. You just push through. They take it day by day and game by game, and it'll work out.
Do you think those moments help? First off, how old roughly were you when this happened?
I was 15, I believe, 15, 16.
So that's a lot to take on at 15, 16, and to have that type of mental maturity to realize like you have to move on and move forward. Did you feel like at any moment that you just you talked about wanting to like just to kind of give up, but was there the support that you talked about earlier? Were they there helping, guiding, coaching you through all this, trying to make you understand like there are moments like this? Doesn't matter at the professional level and at the youth level, it doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Yeah. And like I've mentioned, my mom, my sisters, my cousins, they were all great in that moment. And throughout my entire career, no matter who I was playing for in club, I was always practicing and training and guest playing with the boys team. So the Villarreal boys team, they were my lifeline, because those were the practices I could show up and I know I could enjoy myself. But really one person, I guess, I would really like to talk about is Esteban. He went through it. He went through the politics and saw the politics of the game whenever he left to Mexico. I think I'm proud of myself for leaving to Spain at 18. He didn't even graduate high school when he left to Mexico to go knock on doors, to go play and try to find that little path. So I remember specifically, I was having a tough time and he could tell, and he pulled me to the side and we had the conversation. Soccer is a roller coaster. As great as the high feels, it will just as quickly bring you down to the lowest low you've ever felt. And the politics, man, it's sad, and I really wish that it weren't the case, but soccer, just like anything else, is so full of politics. At the end of the day, you can't just ignore it. He told me it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it, but put your head down and work and push through. There are times where coaches will realize, like, after you put in that work or you're showing up every day, whether you want to be there or not, and they'll realize, and sometimes they won't, and that's okay too. But he told me, like, you have to be willing to accept and celebrate those highs, knowing that you've had lows before and lows will come again. And if you don't want those lows, then that it's not the game for you, to be honest. And that's just reality. And we talk about soccer. These are life lessons. You can't go through, whether it's your job, your sport, or your hobby. You can't want the highs and not want the lows. You can't want the good times and not want the bad times. That's just not how reality is. So I think it was always talking to him, especially since he, saw it so raw in front of him whenever he left to Mexico, that really helped me get through all of that.
That's awesome, because I think those moments, having those people there that have gone through it before you, is so important to listen and seek the counsel from. I'm hoping that my kids, whatever they choose, will have that opportunity to have people around them, because I'll be honest, none of my siblings or their cousins have done anything, not to be mean, but at a high level. They've been competitive, but the closest they get is interacting with your cousins or interacting with other players because of how small our soccer community is in DSW. I don't think people realize how small it is. I drop one name and all of a sudden we have a 30 conversation about another 30 people we know.
Yeah.
In the conversation, and trying to see who they know. And all of a sudden it sparks this whole entire conversation. You talked about Coach Tristan. I find it funny because Landon's gone to soccer camps with him and Coach Rob and over here in Keller. And that's where Landon goes, oh, that's where I know Kassandra from. I remember she helped with Rob's camp.
Yeah.
He knows who all these people are. And it truly comes full circle as you start getting older, and you can have these conversations with people.
And that's something, sorry.
No, you're good.
That's something that, like, it took me growing up a little bit to realize how fortunate I was in that aspect, because in my daily life, it's normal for me to go out 4 times a week to Fort Worth Christian or wherever and see my cousins and see all the soccer. But I would talk about it with people on the team or even at school. Oh, my cousin's this, my cousin's that. And they're like, I don't even talk to my own siblings sometimes. And I talked a lot about how unfortunate the politics is in the soccer. But just as bad as it is, I was lucky that the guys have built huge connections for me. I'm not saying that if it weren't for me being their cousin, I wouldn't have these opportunities. But at the end of the day, like, having those connections gets you play. There's so many talented people out in the world that unfortunately don't have anything to go off of, and in terms of connections, and sometimes that's make or break. Most of the times, that's where it ends. But like you were talking about the soccer world, we would go. The guys used to have FC Dallas passes, and we would go to the games, and we would have to be there hours early, and we would tailgate, and we would do all of that, and walking to the field, we would never get there on time because it was always Gio or Christian or Esteban running into someone they knew and then running into someone else the second they were done with that one conversation. It's just such, I remember this one time we went into a Starbucks, and I don't know how, if the worker was overhearing a conversation or what happened, but they were a player on Texans and they knew the guys. It was like such a small world that it's honestly beautiful, in my opinion. Like, I don't think you can see that in many other places.
I don't think you see it in many places. Like, when it comes to sports, I think you do see it more, but I feel soccer is a different breed of athletes. They may hate each other for 90 minutes, but they get off the pitch and they put their arms around each other like they're best of friends, and they walk off the field together. It's fun watching that. You see it with some sports, with American football, but I don't feel like you see it as often as you do in soccer, where they'll go have 90 minutes of hating each other, and things happen. I think of all the instances that you watched. I can't think of his name. It was a very tragic moment. Christian, what's his name? He was in Europe and he collapsed on the field. And everyone, Erickson, players from both sides were very protective of him, protective of his family, that it was such a close-knit community. Even though they were sworn enemies on the pitch, everyone was so protective of him, of his family. And I don't feel like we see that, at least here.
I agree. And something that really put things into perspective in terms of how beautiful soccer can be, I've always hated how soccer has never been a priority here in the US in general. The women's were a little luckier because soccer has really grown. But when we were younger, like, we had no priority in school. We're not taken into consideration for almost anything. So I always thought that it was because as popular as soccer was, it was never put on that pedestal that maybe like football and baseball are here, that soccer was a little more relatable, and that's why it was such a close-knit community. But going to Spain and seeing how things work over there, it's the exact same thing. And soccer is the thing in Europe. It really just put things into perspective that, like, I'm not talking bad about any other sports. I'm a big bias, but you really don't see that kind of emotion and that kind of empathy and that kind of, like, family sense in any other sport, from what I've seen at least. So it really is just amazing.
I feel like the big difference between here and the rest of the world, especially when it comes to our sports, is the community side of it. This is something I talk. So you have one professional club for every about 250,000 people.
Yeah.
In the rest of the world. And here we have, about 10 to 15 million people here in the DFW area. And we have maybe 8 professional teams. So about 1 million people per team, and you don't have much crossover.
No.
I shouldn't say that. If you're a Cowboys fan, there's crossovers to other sports, but most other sports don't cross over to other sports. And I feel like it's a shame. And we don't get the community support. And listening to all these coaches that I've talked to here, the big thing they talk about, every club, even the youth club, they have their own home field, they have their own facilities, and they run concession stands. And after the game, all the teams will sit down. Doesn't matter if they're home or away. They all sit down and have a pint or a meal and break bread together of some sort. And we don't do that here. Everyone literally gets in their car and leaves and doesn't think twice. And then some families from the team might get together after a game, but it's not like everyone's in such a rush to get to the next thing.
Yeah. That's very true.
So as we have gone through all this, how do you think the competition here in Texas prepared you as you're growing up for the next steps as you're going through? The end process here is you went to Spain and played on a scholarship with Villarreal. So how do you feel the competition here in DFW and the teams here helped you get to where you were at?
Again, I've said this so many times, but it's true. I've gotten very lucky because I've never been the most fit player. I'm fit because soccer demands it, but I've never been the fastest. I'm stronger, but I've never been the strongest. I'm not the tallest. And I can't speak for now, but at least back then, that was what everybody was looking for. And so I got lucky that I had quite a few coaches that knew how to get the potential out of me without needing that physical portion. But even if I didn't have those attributes, that's what was going on in Texas. Like, in the US in general, we've all known, like, it's about building athletes. The speed that some players have, the strength that if you look at a center back on any team, you can guarantee that they can shove anyone off the ball at any point in time. So the competition here, I feel, was very physical based, and that put me above between that and playing with the boys. I never struggled with the girls physically because I was playing with boys physically. They were stronger than me. They were faster than me. And I'm not saying that I wanted to build that strength or build that speed to be like them, but that forced me into situations where I had to be smarter. If I didn't use my brain, I was going to lose because of that You can't compare a guy to a girl, physically speaking. So if with girls, it became a lot easier because I was forced to keep up with the guys in that physical aspect. And so with girls, it was slower and I could keep up. But even then, I didn't have to keep up because I had that IQ. So once I got to Spain, again, playing with boys and playing with the girls that I had been playing with, physically, it wasn't even close. Over there, it's a lot more tactical based and technically based. So physically, I was a little bit more superior than the average player. And so putting that together with what I was learning over there, I think I was knowing that I had to go and keep an open mind and knowing that the soccer style was going to be different, but also being able to apply what I was prepared with from over here. I think it created the best opportunity for me to simply improve as a player.
That's awesome. I think some of that stuff is actually truly missing here because we do focus so much on the bigger, faster, stronger. Having kids that play, I always look at the field and looking at who they're playing against. And I'm always like, okay, this player is the strongest player on the field, but they aren't the most talented, or they're the fastest player on the field. How do we prevent these kids from being stuck? And they're like, how do you better educate parents? Like, bigger, faster, stronger does not mean more talented. They're only good until everyone catches up.
Yeah.
And you talked about the soccer IQ side, the tactical side. And I think that is a big thing missing in U.S. soccer. The youth game, I feel, is very fast, and the ball sometimes does ping pong around. And it turns into a kickball game. But watching more and more games happen, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe you can tell me because you're younger than me and you've been around this game a little bit longer than I have. Do you see the younger ages? I can only base on my daughter. I feel like they do a really good job not playing kickball. They make intentional passes, they make intentional moves. And then you go through this phase when they are all going through these crazy growth spurts and it turns into kickball again. And then you lose that tactical side. Then all of a sudden you start seeing them play football again, the tactics side, the movement, the passing. Do you think through your playing time that the coaches you had really were able to curate that tactical? You talked about playing with the boys really helped it, being smarter because you had to play smarter and faster. Do you think the game is evolving here and catching up with the rest of the world because tactics trump the physical side?
I think what you mentioned about the coaching, 100% depends on the coach. The Mexican style of soccer is a little bit more tactical based. I've had Mexican coaches, I've had Irish coaches, I've had Scottish coaches, and I'm not saying that a US based coach can't be as good, but they had that understanding that IQ is one of the most, if not the most important part of the game. So I never had to struggle in that. And even outside of club with my cousins, I would go watch the boys' games just for fun. I wasn't allowed to play with them, but I would practice with them and I would go watch. And I was always watching the game. And I think sometimes that's what's missing. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, actually, whenever I was with Coach Dan at FC Dallas, I had the opportunity to go try out with DA, which at the time was the thing. And I went to the tryout. I was honest with my coach about it, and I went to the tryout. But I have always kept my eye out on the coaching. That coach specifically, he wanted the bigger, faster, stronger. And I knew no matter if I had the letters, no matter if I could go to school and brag about being on DA, I wasn't going to be successful there because that's not my coaching style. That is not what fit me. And so I decided to stay with Coach Dan, and it didn't matter what league or what letters I had attached to my team or my name. And I think from what I have seen, I think that's something that many people struggle with nowadays. It doesn't matter what their kids are learning, or it doesn't matter what the coach knows about the game. If there are letters attached to the league or to the team, it's immediately like, it's like I don't even know how to explain it. Everyone is immediately looking for that. And I think that the technical and tactical side has developed a lot here compared to when I was younger. But I think the need to be with a certain name has hindered that development a little bit.
Being someone that's, I have to phrase this correctly so I don't get myself in trouble. I am very much about keeping things local. I'll put it that way.
Mm.
I think it was one of your brothers that had said it. I don't know how, cousins have said it so many times. I think Gio says it more than anyone else. Why do I need to leave the Metroplex if I can't beat every team here? If I'm not winning every game here, there's no point of leaving DFW.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. And I'm listening to parents talk and friends talk, and they're talking about traveling. And I'm like, okay, is the coach looking for a free vacation? And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's maybe the coach's ego, or why are we traveling so much? And I want an answer, because if you're not winning in your own backyard, flying halfway across the country or flying to California the other direction or flying to the East Coast and playing a game when you're not winning 90% of your games or more in your backyard, why?
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's why I'm asking, because I don't think parents understand. And playing for whatever alphabet soup league doesn't matter. If you're a talented player, you'll be found. It takes some effort, but you can be found.
And the biggest thing for me is that a lot of people use they know what's wrong. They know it's wrong because people leave to go to that alphabet soup team, and they'll put some kind of excuse behind it. They'll put, oh, the team isn't competitive anymore, or whatever the excuse may be. And I think that's so unfortunate, because the coaches that I have had and the coaches that I know, maybe they haven't coached me, but that I know, they have integrity. And what I have seen is that if a player has truly, truly outgrown the team or has outgrown the competitive level of a certain league, should have the ability to say, and that selflessness to say, listen, I like the conversation that I had with my coach when I was younger. I love you as a player, and I would love to continue to have you on this team. But if understanding that player is not going to grow and is not going to reach their full potential with you on your team is one of the hardest things I think a coach can do, I think they should sit down and have that conversation. And I think that's when players should really take into consideration looking at a different league or a higher level or whatever that is. But if that's not the case, then I really don't understand what it is about looking for all.
Today's conversation with Kassandra was highlighted what it really feels like to grow up inside North Texas girls soccer, the pressure, the politics, the moments where you feel completely overlooked and still choose to keep the love of the game intact. Kassandra showed how a strong support system, honest coaches, and playing in the right environment can turn a tough season into a turning point, and why soccer IQ, character, and community matters more than any league label or logo. Big thanks to Kassandra for joining me today. Hey everyone, if you guys have enjoyed this podcast, have enjoyed what I've been trying to do, the messages that I'm putting out there, please give me some ratings, some stars on all the podcast sites that you listen to this on. Give me a review, share this, share with others. The more I can make this grow, the more I can continue doing this. I'm really trying to make a difference in our soccer community. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all this. And until next time, I'll see you at the pitch.